The United States of America has by far the most impressive collection of roller coasters of any country in the world. In almost all parts of this nation, there is something worth taking the trip for if you're a thrill seeker like myself. As a roller coaster enthusiast, I've had the incredible opportunity to ride over 700 coasters globally, and 500 of those are located in America. After a recent trip where I got to visit some of America's last remaining major amusement parks I had not previously been to, I feel that it's finally appropriate for me to make this list. This will be the first of 2 parts ranking the top 50 roller coasters in the United States. Admittedly, I had a pretty tough time figuring out what 50 coasters were worthy enough to be on here. I know 50 seems like a lot, but there are so many amazing rides in this country to the point where I wish I could go up to 100. But I had to draw the line somewhere, and with that I did want to throw in some honorable mentions. These were the 5 coasters that narrowly missed the cut, plus one that had just opened to the public and therefore I have not ridden it yet. First up is Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. I know I'm in the minority when I say this is one of the less impressive RMCs out there. Most would consider it a top 50 coaster worldwide, but I just didn't think so. As I read more RMCs, they start to blend together a bit, and Storm Chaser just doesn't stick out all too much. It does have some fantastic airtime moments and a good fun layout, but otherwise missed the mark to be on this list. Thunderhead at Dollywood is a terrific GCI wooden roller coaster that I think could very well make the cut with a re-ride. I've heard it was retracked lately and is running super well. Back in 2021 when I got to ride it, I thought the layout was jam-packed and very intense for a wooden coaster. It keeps a great pace and follows the terrain, which enables it to do so. Another great wooden roller coaster is Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. I also love how this ride utilizes its terrain, allowing for significant buildups in speed at various points throughout the layout. It's got a good variety of airtime moments and a fantastic use of tunnels as well. Cannibal at Lagoon is Utah's most thrilling roller coaster and a spectacle from off-ride. It features one of my favorite first drops of all time, wrapping under itself at 116 degrees beyond vertical. In addition, Cannibal features 4 great inversions and some very unique qualities too. Monster at Adventureland in Iowa is one that I didn't expect to love as much as I did. It's a Gerstlauer infinity coaster with a beyond vertical drop, 5 inversions, and glossy smooth track work. This is my favorite Gerstlauer in the US. Lastly, Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park is the newest roller coaster from Rocky Mountain Construction. It just recently opened in June and I haven't had the chance to experience it quite yet. I'd imagine when I do get on it, it'll crack the top 15 and maybe top 10 if what I've been hearing about it is true. But with that all being said, let's dive into my list of the top 50 roller coasters in the United States.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
At number 50 is Prowler at Worlds of Fun. Just barely making the cut, Prowler is one of America's best GCI wooden roller coasters. It's got a fantastic layout utilizing the terrain the best it can. Therefore, you're able to keep a great pace throughout the ride, and it allows for stronger airtime and quicker transitions as well. Number 49, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. While I may not have this ride as high as some, I absolutely do acknowledge that it's a fantastic B&M coaster. The first half of the layout packs in some incredible sustained floater airtime on a super smooth track. There's not a ton of variety in the layout, but there doesn't need to be because every element is at least fun. Everything after the mid-course brake run aren't the best though, and that's why this isn't my favorite B&M hyper in America. Number 48, Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. The first Rocky Mountain Construction revamp of a GCI may not have been one of the best RMCs, but I do think it's underrated. Many consider this the absolute worst of the bunch, but I would disagree. The mixture of airtime and inversions was very effective on Joker, and I love how the ride looks with the purple and green track too. Number 47, Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. An unpopular opinion I have is I think Lightning Run is the best coaster at this park and not Storm Chaser. Lightning Run barely clears the 100-foot height barrier, and it doesn't go that fast, which should tell you that it's one of those coasters that proves stats aren't everything. The ride is filled to the brim with airtime moments and some super whippy transitions which you wouldn't expect from such a small ride. Number 46, Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. It's no secret that I find this coaster a bit overrated, but it still cracks my top 50, meaning it is a great ride. I think it's got a fantastic layout with large hills in the first half and a spaghetti bowl of track in the second half. For me, the restraints do take away a bit from the forces, and I consider the second half to meander a bit, but it does have some incredible sustained airtime moments, which is why I decided to include the ride in this list. Number 45, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Another one of those coasters that prove that stats aren't everything. Copperhead Strike is a Mock Rides multi-launch coaster on a smaller scale, but in my opinion, the manufacturer packed in only high-quality elements with 5 terrific inversions and great airtime moments. I also appreciate that Carowinds took the time to theme this coaster, rounding out a good overall experience. Number 44, Raven at Holiday World. This little Indiana amusement park is home to 3 incredible wooden roller coasters, and you'll see the other 2 come up later in the list. Let me just say, for this to be the weakest of the bunch is totally unfair, because I'd still consider it one of the best wood coasters in the country. It may not be the longest ride, but Raven has incredible pacing, some phenomenal drops, and a beautiful setting flying through the woods. Number 43, Phoenix at Knoebels. An award winner for best wooden coaster, Phoenix doesn't rank quite that high for me, but I always walk off this thing with a smile on my face. It's one that I find hard to place because it's such a unique unique attraction. Phoenix is a classic wooden coaster with a pretty small stature, but its restraints, or lack thereof, make this ride so good. Every single hill on this thing will cause you to go soaring out of your seat, and it honestly feels like an accident waiting to happen, which I love. Number 42, Aftershock at Silverwood. Vekoma boomerangs are some of the most notorious coaster models out there for their rough, uncomfortable ride experience, but the manufacturer's giant inverted boomerangs are so much better. Granted, they're also much more rare and much more expensive to maintain. These things are absolute monsters, and it shows in the forces that they pull. Aftershock has some phenomenal positive G-forces, whip, and disorientation riders will experience throughout the layout. Number 41, Beast at Kings Island. An absolute legend in the coaster world, the Beast still holds up to this day in my opinion. By day, its sprawling layout seems questionable to some, but at night when you can't see where this thing is going, it is among the most memorable wooden coasters in the country. I love this ride's raw characteristics, sense of speed, and extremely long ride time. Number 40, Goliath at Six Flags Great America. I went into this ride with expectations it would be one of my absolute least favorite RMCs, but it ended up surprising me, ranking above several others. Where Goliath falls flat in its super short ride length, it has not one dud element. Its drop, its airtime hills, and its inversions are all among the best for a wooden coaster in my opinion. Number 39, Renegade at Valleyfair. One of GCI's more underrated wooden coasters can be found all the way up in Minnesota. It's a super fast-paced coaster with a great balance of low to the ground and high off the ground moments. It only stands 97.5 feet tall, but because of the brilliant layout, you keep a phenomenal sense of speed throughout the entire ride. Number 38, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. Since I rode this coaster for the first time last year, all I've seemed to talk about is how I think this coaster is overhyped. But behind all of that, I'm absolutely willing to admit that it's a fantastic wooden roller coaster. Something about it may have left me a little underwhelmed, but this ride has an amazing layout with plenty of airtime and a beautiful setting. Number 37, Stunt Pilot at Silverwood. Rocky Mountain Construction's single-rail Raptor track coaster is a super intense model. The prototype layout proved to be a real success at its original park and has been nearly cloned 2 other times since. Stunt Pilot has some slight modifications made to it, some for the better and some for the worse, but it's still an incredibly wild ride and my favorite roller coaster in the Pacific Northwest. Number 36, Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. I reference this coaster when talking about Stunt Pilot since they are very, very similar. Wonder Woman is a bit older and a bit shakier, but it's also more intense and feels like it's too fast for its own good. Every airtime moment and every transition pulls forces you wouldn't expect to be so powerful. Wonder Woman may not be for everyone, but I love a chaotic ride like this. Number 35, Railblazer at California's Great America. Opening just a few months after Wonder Woman, Railblazer is a mirrored replica providing more or less the exact same ride experience. I did find this one to be slightly smoother when I rode it, but otherwise the forces are the same and it's still the crazy intense speed demon that I know and love. Number 34, Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove. Since I rode this coaster in 2020, I've said it's one of the most underrated you'll find anywhere in the country. It takes the concept of a premier ride Skyrocket 2 and executes it 1,000 times better. There's incredible airtime pops, solid positive forces, wonky transitions, and the list goes on. Number 33, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. The original extreme spinning coaster by Mach Rides may not compare to the second installation in Belgium, Ride to Happiness, but it's still a fantastic ride. My favorite thing about Time Traveler is how it uses its terrain to its advantage, something that it actually does have on the Ride to Happiness. One of the best parts of the ride is that drop straight out of the station, and the rest of the layout keeps that high energy going as well. Number 32, Boss at Six Flags St. Louis. One of America's most polarizing roller coasters, Boss is a ride that you either love or hate, but I absolutely fell in love with it when I rode it in 2021. Though it does have an obnoxious trim in the middle of the layout, and it may not be the smoothest, I appreciated the sheer intensity of this wooden coaster amongst others. The power and speed of this ride is crazy, and not many wood coasters out there can compare in those areas. Number 31, Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. This is a coaster that shot up my list recently, not because I've ridden it again since, but because I hated how low it was. Even if it felt a little weird moving it above some of the rides beneath it, Boulder Dash earned this spot. Its world-class terrain interaction incorporating airtime, laterals, and great pacing throughout the layout warrant its reputation as one of the best wooden coasters in the US. Number 30, Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. The only roller coaster from Morgan manufacturer to make my list is one that I'm due for a re-ride on, but considering I last rode it in 2019 and it still held on to a top 30 spot is very impressive. Once again, Phantom's Revenge follows the terrain beautifully, which allows for excellent pacing, but the airtime is what stands out the most for me. Due to the ride's minimalistic restraints, you go soaring out of your seat on each of those bunny hills at the end of the ride. Even after 4 years, I can still remember just how incredible those moments are, and that speaks volumes about the ride's quality. Number 29, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is the best B&M hypercoaster on the continent, and I don't even think it's that close. Mako was probably the second place for me, and that barely made the list. Don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic ride, but Goliath's variety of forces is truly something special. From the familiar floater airtime hills of other B&M hypers to the best and most intense turnaround ground section on any B&M coaster, and a finish consisting of sustained ejector hills, Goliath is an awesome ride. Number 28, Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. RMC's original Topper Track coaster remains a particularly memorable ride amongst their catalog of attractions. Though its airtime may not be as wild as some other RMCs, and its hangtime moments aren't a favorite of mine, something about the way it rides makes me want to retain its high ranking. I love how raw this thing feels as it flies through the woods of the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. It's an absolutely awesome experience, and riding this at night with fireworks remain one of the best coaster rides I've ever had. Number 27, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Admittedly, I used to have this ride quite a bit lower on my list, but after reconsidering, I realized that some of my favorite moments ever living in California were thanks to this berry coaster. The night rides I've had on this thing have all been outrageous, and even in the daytime, it's easy to appreciate the ride's incredible variety. Outstanding pacing, great airtime, world-class lateral forces, and a smooth ride experience makes it one of my favorite wooden coasters to this day. Number 26, Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Just an hour and a half up the road is another phenomenal roller coaster here in my home state. Twisted Colossus has lost some of its charisma over the years due to its racing element becoming less frequent, but one thing you can't take away from it is its layout and forces that you essentially get to experience two separate times. And if you do get lucky and it is dueling, this is about as good as it gets on an RMC. I love this coaster, and I hope the park realizes its full potential. They were able to figure it out with West Coast racers, but in my opinion, fixing Twisted Colossus and programming it to race every single time should have been an even bigger priority than building an entirely new coaster. But with that being said, that's gonna do it for part 1 of my top 50 roller coasters in the United States. I can't wait to share part 2 with you all because the following 25 rides are literally worth traveling to their respective states for alone in my opinion. But if you enjoyed spots 50 to 26, do leave me a like and consider subscribing to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Also, leave me a comment letting me know which of these rankings surprised you, which you agreed with, and which you didn't agree with. Until next time, I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.